Let's use their term, which is resistance. Let's remember that about a year ago, someone wrote an anonymous op-ed saying that there's an organized resistance within the bureaucracy to President Trump. We are fighting against him. That person, on top of all these transcripts, their book is coming out in a couple of weeks. Yeah. These people in the bureaucracy hate President Trump. They can't believe he's the president. They've been working against him from day one. You combine that with the Democrats trying to overturn the election from day one, and that's what you have now. That's why we shouldn't take it seriously. And further, these people inside the bureaucracy, the other thing they're doing is protecting Joe Biden, because the only real corruption allegation here is against Joe Biden. He was in charge of Ukraine policy. He supervised billions of dollars of aid that went from the U.S. taxpayer to Ukraine. Much of that went to Burisma, a gas company that was paying his son. How much money did Joe Biden channel to his son's business? That's the corruption allegation. No one wants to explore that. These people are protecting against that. There's a further element of corruption that needs to be looked into, and again something that Ukraine should investigate, which is John Kerry's corruption. He was Secretary of State at the time. He was also involved in channeling money to Ukraine. His former Chief of Staff was hired by Burisma soon after Hunter Biden went on the board. They hired John Kerry's former Chief of Staff while he was Secretary of State, paid him money from Burisma, could have come from the U.S. taxpayer. That money is circled back to Democratic senators who then write to the administration calling for more money to be sent to Burisma. All of that needs to be investigated. John Kerry's corruption.
There's no evidence to anything you
facts that I've just laid out is the evidence.
I worked at the State Department
then. So you're covering up the corruption too if you defend it.
Are you
These
kidding
are
me?
Facts. Billions of
Steve,
dollars
I'm on
went
this couch
to
with
Burisma.
you talking about the news. Please don't accuse me of covering something up.
You are, because you're saying there's no evidence. I've just...
Our chief political anchor and anchor...
What the hell do these platoon members know about their fellow platoon member? I mean, after all, we ought to listen to Susan Rice. She knows everything. Marie Harf is a State Department deputy spokesidiot. And here is she yesterday at a briefing.
We don't know the facts about what happened yet.
Why don't we? It's been 5 years. Why don't we know the facts about what happened yet? Aren't you the spokesidiot for the State Department? Didn't Susan Rice go on TV and say this guy is he served honorably? I think you do know the facts. And as a matter of fact, we already know that since 2009 there'd been some investigation over the circumstances of this guy walking off. So there she is, lying through her teeth.
On that
By the
day.
way, what is she, 14 years old? Doesn't she sound that way?
According to those around him, his platoon mates, his squad mates, company mates, they said he walked off.
Some of them, there are conflicting reports out there about this. Look,
are there?
There are. Go Google it on the web and you'll find it.
Oh, there's conflict. Let's all go to Google. I mean, we can't expect the deputy spokesidiot over there at the State Department to know the facts. Didn't she just say we don't know all the facts, Mr. Producer? Then what did she do? Direct the whole country to go to Google and get the facts. What is this, Disneyland? No, I like Disneyland. What? I don't know. What the hell is this?
The fact is we're still establishing a fact pattern about what happened, how he ended up in Taliban captivity. So I think people need to be really careful about believing every second or third hand report out there. And also what the president...
Hey, lady, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, lady. Those men who've come forward, they're not second and third hand reports. They know what happened. And if they hadn't come forward, we wouldn't know. And if they didn't know anything about it, then why the hell did you have them sign non-disclosure reports? I thought they're second and third hand witnesses. No. We need to listen to what Susan Rice says, not the actual men in the platoon. Not the squad mates, not the company mates, not the platoon mates. We have to listen to this young lady. She knows everything, and she made it clear. Go to Google. And we need to get the facts by getting a fact pattern or some mumbo-jumbo.
What the Secretary, what Chairman Dempsey have said, regardless of how he went missing, it is our responsibility to him to bring him home.
You know, nothing's worse than an arrogant numbskull. Regardless of how he went missing, It is our responsibility to him to bring him home, period. No, it's not. I hate to tell you. If there's a deserter who's left his unit and is joined up with the enemy, it is absolutely not. Let me be the first one to say it. It is not our responsibility to bring him home, and I would never, ever, ever put another soldier's life at risk to bring him home. How do you like that?
When you say second, third-hand reports, when his squad mates who served with him overseas said he walked off the
Lucas,
top.
I'm sure some of them, and look, there's a lot of rumor and telephone game that's being played here about what happened.
Who is this? This buffoon? Who is this? Will they just drag her right out of middle school or something? There's a lot of rumor and telephone game that's being played here about what is telephone game? So you see, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot trust our men and women in uniform, the real heroes, when they come forward and tell us as first-hand eyewitnesses about what took place, as character witnesses about what kind of a person this fellow was. No, we have to rely on Marie Harf, deputy spokesidiot. I would love to know her background. Let's all go to Google and see Marie Harf, Harf, and see what qualifications she brings to the job. Because even before the reporter asks his question, and this reporter's actually doing his job, asking pretty good questions, she's ready to interrupt. Oh, yes. Is this a telephone game? Sounds like a spoiled 14-year-old brat to me. Does she not to you, Mr. Producer? Way out of her league, way over her head. But then again, look who the Secretary of State is. And then again, look who the Secretary of State was before him. It was her. Hillary. And that great book of hers, Hard Choices. Stolen from Cyrus Vance, his great book, Hard Choices. 2 books nobody gives a damn about. I've concluded this is a Valley Girl. Isn't that what they used to call them? Valley Girls? Yes, I think so. So we have a Valley Girl spokesidiot, the deputy spokesidiot at the State Department. Because this administration always fills these key spots with the most qualified people in the country. Well, what was she? Some kind of a campaign, campaign person? I'm just curious. Hey, Mike or Rich, can you Google, now that she mentions it, Marie Harf, and let us know the brilliant background that she must have? Not even on Wikipedia. I'm on Wikipedia. Of course, these slimeball leftists are constantly going on there trying to say things about me that aren't very kind. But does she show up anywhere on Google? Go to Google. She's the former CIA spokesperson. Oh, that's great. And what'd she do before that? She's obviously been a spokesidiot for a lot of these departments and agencies. Former CIA. I mean, look at this. The standards are... I've probably already gotten in trouble with a few of these references.
Hello, welcome to the briefing. This is the... I would say a few points. Look, the first is, and I have a little bit on this, just give me 1 second, right, we have seen
Meet Obama's Kissingers. The National Security Council is no place for speechwriters and lobbyists. If the Bergdahl uproar feels creepily reminiscent of the Benghazi uproar, or the Syrian Red Line uproar, or the Choose Your Own Obama Foreign Adventure uproar, it's because they all have a common denominator. This is what happens when political hacks formally take over foreign policy. It's the formal point that bears some meditation. Barack Obama isn't the first president to make foreign policy decisions on the basis of domestic political calculations. He does, however, win the distinction of being the first president to utterly disregard, to treat with contempt, the institutions and procedures that were designed to help the commander-in-chief insulate the serious business of foreign policy and national security from baser political concerns. At the heart of this effort is the National Security Council, otherwise known as the NSC, which has served President since its inception under Harry Truman. Made up of the President, Vice President, a National Security Advisor, various cabinet secretaries, and representatives from the military and the intelligence agencies, the NSC has been by procedure and fierce tradition a rare apolitical form, a place for the President to hear hard reality. NSC staff are foreign policy grown-ups, and its meetings are barred to political henchmen. Or that was the case until the Obama White House. By early March 2009, 2 months into this presidency, the New York Slimes had run a profile of David Axelrod, noting that Mr. Obama's top campaign guru and political protector was now often to be found in the late afternoons walking to the Situation Room to attend some meetings of the National Security Council. President Obama's first national security advisor, former Marine General and NATO Commander Jim Jones, left after only 2 years following clashes with Mr. Obama's inner circle. He was replaced by Democratic political operative and former Fannie Mae lobbyist Tom Donilon. Mr. Donilon joined Ben Rhodes, the Obama campaign speechwriter, who in 2009 had been elevated to Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategic Communications. Also present was Tommy Viter, whose entire career prior to NSC spokesman was as an Obama spinmeister, as a press aide in the 2004 Senate run, and campaign flack for the 2008 Iowa caucuses, and an assistant White House press secretary. In fairness, his credentials also included getting caught on camera in 2010 pounding beers shirtless at a Georgetown bar. America's foreign policy experts at work. Not that Mr. Obama's first instinct is even to rely on his now overtly political NSC. The Wall Street Journal reported in September 2013 that as the White House struggled with the question of military intervention in Syria, it summoned all the old Obama loyalists for advice. They included his 2008 campaign manager, David Plouffe, his former press secretary, Robert Gibbs, a former speechwriter and actor from Swingers and the movie Made, Jon Favreau. Yes, that Jon Favreau. And Mr. Viter, who has by then left the NSC to form a political consulting group. A serious-minded NSC in the tumultuous aftermath of Benghazi would have responded with a sober assessment for its president of the real and continued terror threat and of the failings that resulted in 4 dead Americans. Instead, we find the deputy NSA, Mr. Rhodes, crafting an internal email advising his colleagues to spin and blame it all on an internet video. Mr. Rhodes had no interest in advising the president on hard realities. His only interest was ensuring his boss got re-elected. The same political Svengalis rooted for Mr. Obama's decision to set an Afghan withdrawal deadline over the objections of military personnel. They were the architects of the president's decision to drop his red line warning to Syria's Bashar Assad on Congress and then blame Congress for failure of action. They gave us resets, pivots, and leading from behind, and in recent weeks have explained that Mr. Obama's foreign policy is best described as, like, don't do stupid stuff. This is what happens when you give hacks control. Your foreign policy vision gets reduced to a public safety commercial from a vodka company. Presidents bear ultimate responsibility for institutional dysfunction, but it is also the case that Mr. Donilon and his successor, Susan Rice, have ill-served their boss by tolerating or even encouraging political nonsense. Debate all you want over what motivated the White House to do the Bengal swap. What's beyond debate is that politics drove its rollout, and that there was nobody with enough seriousness or clout in the White House to stop it. It was a political desire to sweep the Veterans Administration scandal off the front pages that put President Obama in the Rose Garden with Sergeant Bergdahl's parents when Secretary of State John Wintersalter's Kerry or even a press release would have given distance. It was a political desire to claim a foreign policy victory that saw Miss Rice again peddling a phony story, this time about how Sergeant Bergdahl had served with honor and distinction when senior officials had to know that was questionable. Who failed to warn the president that Sergeant Bergdahl's fellow soldiers would surely speak out? Who failed to walk him through the ABCs of the statute he signed requiring congressional notification, or warn him of the bipartisan fury his cold shoulder would inspire? Most remarkable is that despite the endless loop of foreign policy fiascos, this White House seems oblivious to the need for institutional change. It has had its share of experienced hands, Bob Gates, Leon Panetta. They come and go, but it shows no evidence it learned from them. In Obama world, there is only politics, and so the world will continue to burn.